Here's a walkthrough of how to mix vocals in a pop or indie pop, anything like that kind of style song. Let's just dive in and listen, and then I'll start breaking it down.
I need you right here. We've come too far to lay down and just give up. It's not too late to fix what we tried to f up.
Okay, cool. So that's what we're gonna look at. That's what we're gonna look into here. The part that starts here, I have another video for that I'll link somewhere up here. We're going to be focusing on the main, not as airy part of the vocals around here.
Need you right here. We've come
So we're
too
just
far.
looking at the vocals.
We've come too far to lay down and just give up. It's not too late.
We've got a few
to
things going on here. I started with just this lead vocal. So we'll walk through that first and just kind of the pieces of it and how they fit together.
We've come too far to lay down and just give up. It's
Cool. So
not
that's my
too
lead vocal. And what I've done here is I already have this. I mean, the most important thing is going to be comps of all your takes so that it's clean, and then tuning it if you need to. I tune it. Maybe you don't. I don't know. Maybe you're an awesome singer. If so, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little jealous. But anyway, I tune it. I use Melodyne to do that. So the first thing I did was went through and tuned all of that using Melodyne. Maybe I'll do another video on that since that's a whole thing. But once I have this clean vocal, that's what we're looking at here. I just threw some really light pitch correction on it. It's not really doing anything. It's just like it's just in the scale of the song. It's on a pretty slow response time, and it's just kind of like a backup in case I missed anything on the tuning side. But you can hear it.
We've come too far to lay down and just give up.
It's not really doing
It's
much,
not too
if
late.
anything at all. To walk through the vocal chain that I'm using on how we got that sound, I'm going to turn off all these sends that I'm using. These aren't going anywhere anyway. So we had that. This is what it sounds like after that tuned.
We've come too far to lay down and just give up. It's not too late to fix what.
So that's what we're working with. And actually, I have some other things on the summing bus there. So let me turn those off real quick. There we
We've
go.
come too far to lay down and just give up. It's not too late.
So that's
to fix.
that's the clean vocal. Let me just turn off those compressors.
We've come too far to lay
So
down.
that's what we have to begin
and
with. The first thing that I did was add this dynamic EQ, and this is taking out a lot of the low end that I don't need. So if we just kind of A/B this here
We've come too far to lay
versus
down.
just let's just.
We've come too far to lay. We've come too far to lay. We've come too far to
So
lay.
what I'm doing here with that on repeat is I'm taking out the low end, below 87. Got a cutoff there of 18 dB per octave. The other parts, the reason I like using this EQ instead of just the channel EQ is that I can do cool stuff like this. So this little dip here has, I've set a threshold and then a range of how far it's pushing down that EQ. So in the low end, it means it still, most of the time, keeps that low end so that it's really kind of has that strong bass or that strong low end to the vocal. But then when it gets a little too boomy, whether that's I got too close to the mic or just when I'm changing registers as I'm singing, it pops it down. So you'll see this move. So that's why it's a dynamic EQ, is that it's fine if it doesn't exceed a certain amount, but once that low end gets too high, it boosts it down. So let's watch it. And I do that on a couple different bands. I do that on that band, as well as I kind of use it as a deEsser at the top where I boost it. And then I also have a threshold to bring it back down. So it keeps it, very articulate and airy sounding and brings out that nice high end of the vocal, but also then brings it back down whenever it gets too sizzly, too essy, or anything that's essing up there. The other place I'm using it is on just a low shelf cutoff there as well. Not as drastic, but just dipping some of that, since a lot of the low end in this vocal was, it just didn't fit in the song, and I wanted to take some of it out.
We've come too far too late.
So besides just looking cool as it bounces around there, it's able to kind of do that without taking out low end where it shouldn't, and is just a little more, versatile throughout the song, where I might have otherwise had to have automated the EQ to get that same effect. Cool. So that's the first thing. I don't know why I left that in there. That was off anyway. The next thing I added in was a DeEsser.
We've come too far to lay down.
And honestly, sometimes I usually don't take off as much of that. But this is just kind of de-essing some of that top end as well.
We've come too far to lay down, and we've come too far.
Especially when I'm layering the vocals there, I go pretty heavy on the de-esser, since they're all going to build up anyway. So you'll definitely hear them. But that's what I'm doing here. We'll just do a quick.
We've come too far to lay down, and
so you can hear that, especially on the 2, the difference there. That was with it off.
Too far.
That was with it on.
Too far.
So that's just taking away some of that in those essing parts of the vocal. The next thing that we did is add this EQ that I think this one kind of emulates like an analog EQ. So it just adds a little bit of character to it, I feel like, versus the channel EQ. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually using it for a little bit of gain, just because I like the sound of it. I am boosting a little bit of the low end, since I liked the character it was adding to the low end, and then I'm really cranking up the 8K area there. So let's hear that on and off. This will be off.
We've come too far to lay down, and we've come too far to lay down.
So that's just really punching through. And when we hear that in the mix, so I'm just going to mute the other vocals here for a minute. So this is in context.
We've come too
So this is with that off. That's with that on. So it just really helps it pop through the mix there. And I'm really boosting that up quite a bit by 6 dB. So that's how I'm getting it to punch through the mix. I also just like that area of my vocal, that like 6K range. And I got there, just by turning knobs.
We've come too far to lay down, and 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 we've come too far to lay down. So that's kind of how I audition those different options. I just turn the knobs until I think it sounds good. And I try to do that while the mix is on. I'm soloing it here, but I'm always checking that in the mix, because it sounds kind of obnoxious. We've come too far to lay down on its own, right? But then come too far to lay down, it just really sits once it's in that total mix. So I just always have that. I'm soloing it maybe to hear particular frequencies or particular things about it, particular qualities, but then I hear it in the mix. The next things that we had on there, I think I had Decapitator off. I'll use that a little bit later, but I have 2 compressors in series. So I'm just going to go over both of those at the same time because they work in tandem. So the audio is going in this one first, this one second. I think it's a 76 style and then an LA2A style in series. So let's hear what those are doing. We'll turn those off and on. We've come too far to lay down, and we've come too far to lay down. So just really controlling and bringing in some of those dynamics that we're working with throughout the performance of it. As we look at what each one is doing, We've come too far to lay down.
Now I'm just
and
cranking
we've
the
come
knobs
too
to on the attack and release there, and having 8x ratio on the 76 style, and I'm bringing it down where it's at most bringing it down about 10 dB. I think I used to have the 76 doing a lot more of the workload there, and basically just it'd be going down to the minus 20 dB. But recently I've been splitting that workload more evenly. So as we play it here, you can see they're both doing about the same workload as far as dB reduction. I'll AB the 2A on and off, so then you can hear just what that's doing. I feel like this has a really nice, like, smooth upper mid or smooth high end that I think it adds to it using that 2A, and that's why I started putting more load, more of that reduction on the 2A versus just the 76.
We've come too far to lay down, and we've come too far to lay down, and we've come too far to lay down, and we've come too far to lay down.
So that's how I'm handling a lot of the dynamics control for these vocals, is using those two compressors right back to back. The thing I do after that is just add another deEsser on there. This one's not going to be as powerful. It's just to kind of tame anything that might have popped up during the compression where everything gets squashed a little bit. So we'll hear this off and on.
We've come too far to lay down, and we've come too far to lay down, and we've come too far to lay down. Yeah, so
it's not doing a ton, but it's just controlling those S's, because eventually, especially when you're layering vocals, they're just going to start to pop out in the mix if you're not careful about it. And then the last thing that I do is add another EQ just to cut off any other low end that might have come up as well during that compression phase or anything else that I'm doing. And then in this one, I just happen to bring down a lot of the like 2 to 400 range. It was just kind of boxy, so we'll hear that off and on as well. We'll hear it first off.
We've come too far to lay down, and we've come too far to lay down, and we've come too far to lay down.
And another reason I'm doing this, again, when I, not a huge difference here, and maybe it almost sounds like you're taking away some of the boominess or the bassiness of it, but when we hear it in the mix, I'll mute these other vocals for a minute.
We've come too far to lay down, and we've come too far to lay down.
It almost clears up the mix because there's so much else going on in this range down here already in the song, between the bass, between the guitars and the other synths, that it's just adding too much there, and the whole mix sounds muddy. And by taking it away, the vocal actually comes up more. It comes out more in the mix, at least to my ears. So we'll hear that again once more. Off.
We've come too far to lay down, and we've come too far to lay down, and we've come too far to lay down, and we've come too far to lay down.
So subtle, but overall it's all adding up. Those are the main inserts that I'm using on that lead vocal chain. The next thing that I'm doing is starting to use my send effects. So anytime I'm using reverb, delays, any of that kind of stuff, I'm doing that in parallel, or I'm sending it to a separate bus that I can control it there. And with my vocals, I'm sharing those sends across all of my vocals. So as I look through the rest of these, we're going to see basically the exact same setup, but maybe with a couple tweaks here and there for each of those vocals. So my first one, we have my reverb. So let's solo this and hear it.
We've come
And
too
I'm just going
far
to move
to
this so
lay
we're not listening to the same thing that many times.
and just give up. It's not too late to
Okay,
fix
so
what
you hear that reverb already. This is my short reverb. So it's kind of a, short, just room sound.
and just give up. It's not too late to fix
Crank it up just so you can hear it.
Just give up.
So that's just adding a little bit of width to the vocal by having that reverb over here. What I'm doing with this reverb is a short 0.74 seconds reverb, 100% wet on this bus track, and then I'm EQing it out with my channel EQ plugin at looks like around 790 to 2760. So it's just bringing those mid ranges, so you can hear without that.
Just give up. It's not too late.
Kind of that full
to
reverb
fix
versus, I'll toggle it on halfway here.
Just give up. It's not too late to fix what
So it
we
kind of
try.
just tucks it in the back of the mix more. And again, in context,
Just give up. It's not too late to fix
just
what
clears
we
that total mix up as well by not cluttering up and muddying up any of those other frequencies. The next send that we have on there is our long reverb. So we'll turn this on here.
Just give up. It's not
You can definitely hear that.
late to fix what we try.
When I
Just
turn the
give
EQ
up.
off,
It's not too late to fix what we try. Just give up. It's not too late to fix what we try. Just
so again,
give
it's just
up.
kind of adding that
not
feel. This reverb is almost 4 seconds, still 100% wet because, and just a note, we're having that 100% wet here because it's not an insert where I'm doing it in line. I'm able to control very precisely how much of that audio I'm sending to the full reverb. So I want this to be 100% wet, and I'm controlling it using things like how much am I sending, what's the volume, what's that fader at for the aux bus, and my EQ on it. Those are how I'm kind of taming the EQ versus using just the wet dry metering here. So now we've got this length added with the reverb, and we have the width added with the short reverb. Now we're adding a slap delay. So let's listen to this.
Just give up. It's not
And
too
off.
late to fix what we try. Just give up. It's not too late to
I'll
fix
mute the other
what
effects so you can
we
hear it.
try. Just give up. It's not too late to fix what we try. Just give up.
So just
It's not too
kind of gives it a little more groove and also a lot of width with what we're doing on that delay, which is a stereo delay with the timing between the left and right delay a little bit off, so that they're not perfect copies of each other. So that means it's going to sound even wider because the timing of them is a little bit off. Again, it's 100% mix on these. I'm doing some of the EQ directly in the slap delay here. And then I'm also just kind of doing a to be safe EQ afterwards to keep it just in the mids.
just give up. It's not too late to fix what
The
we
next
try.
thing that we've added in, we have our longer delay, which is our ping pong delay. So let's hear that.
Just give up. It's not too late to fix what we
So this
try.
one is
Just
adding both width and length to it, in that it's, it's lengthening the time you're hearing the note or the time that note kind of affects the listener. And by being stereo, it's also going back and forth as it's bouncing there. So again, we're using a stereo delay. This time we're doing it at quarter note, eighth notes instead of the very short slap delay that we were using earlier. And it's only coming in on our right delay, and then it's bouncing to the left and so on. And I just kind of evened this out to be, 85, 100, just so that they were a little more even on those initial ones instead of being way louder on that first delay on the right. I wanted to even those out like you'll hear here.
just give up. It's not too late to fix what we try. Just give up. It's not too late.
So I just kind of
to
found a
fix
sweet
what
spot there
we
where it sounded like they were more even, especially on those first few notes, instead of just all you hear is the right one on that first delay. So that's why I didn't have that one at 100%. I also have the delays different here, just so they're bouncing around a little bit differently, back and forth with the cross feeds here. So it is going every eighth note, it's delaying, sending that signal, 55% of that signal over to the left delay, which is then having a kind of echo every quarter note, which is then sending that back to the right delay at 55% of that signal as well. And it just keeps doing that. The other thing that I've added on that long reverb, instead of having it just a dry delay, we've added another send on our send. So like send deception there for our ping pong delay to our long reverb. And to hear it without that, this is why I don't use a dry delay.
And just give up, it's not too late to fix what we try. Just give up, it's not too late to fix what we try.
It's just a little, I don't know, it doesn't fit the song very well. It's not adding the like ambiance or like the feeling that you want out of those long, or that I wanted out of that long delay. So by adding in the reverb on the delay, it kind of softens that delay instead of making it sound like a perfect copy. Like those almost sound like ad-libs to me. Like if it's just the dry one.
And just give up, it's not.
Like somebody else is being like, it's not. Versus this is.
And just give up, it's not too late.
A little more in context with how I'm wanting it to sound in the song there. The last thing that we had in here is a parallel widening track. So this is using a doubler or any sort of really stereo imaging. I used to use chorus, just a chorus effect, anything that modulates that image, that stereo image of it. And then I'm just using, I don't know why it looks like this. Maybe I need to update it. But iZotope's vocal doubler, I just have it, cranked pretty high on the effect, just like I have the reverbs and delays set at 100% or really high on the sends. And then I'm controlling it with how much I'm sending. So.
And just give up, it's not too late to
again,
fix
we're EQing it.
We try, just give up, and just give up, it's not too late.
So that adds a lot of like low end buildup.
And just give up.
So I'm EQing that as well in the same range that I am with everything else, 700 to 3,800 here. So again, I don't know why it looks like that right now, but I'm just using the vocal doubler there to add even more width and make it sound big and in your face. So once we have all of these on, and I skipped this, but the last plugin I have is a gain plugin. And this is so that I can automate the gain throughout the song. So you can hear certain things I like to bring up. And as I go through verses and choruses, it just really helps it fit everywhere I want it to without using up my fader, because I want to use my fader for overall mixing instead of having it designated to automation like this. You can probably use, like, I've seen Vocal Rider, like Waves plugin that is supposed to kind of automate that for you and help it basically do what I'm doing here just in a plugin. I've not tried that, but might save you some time. This doesn't take too long, but yeah, if it helps and you want to try it, that's one that I've heard of. Let's just hear that all, and then I'll A/B it on and off.
And just give up, it's not too late.
So that's everything. And then dry.
And just give up, it's not too late to fix what.
And then let's just hear that. I'll start to add it piece by piece.
We've come too far to lay down and just give up. It's not too late to fix what we try. We've come too far to lay down and just give up. It's not too late to fix what we try. We've come too far to lay down and just give up. It's not too late to fix.
So now that vocal sounds pretty massive and just up front in front of everything. So that's why. That's why we're using all of this, that it really becomes the central point of our mix, because it's the chorus, it's the lead vocal, and we want it to be the thing that people pay attention to right now. The next thing that we did is basically duplicating that on all of our extra tracks down here, or our other vocal tracks. So we'll do this I'll go through the doubles first, which are really just the extras, the exact same thing. I just sang it twice, went through the comping and tuning process on all these, and this is thickening that vocal up even more. So let's take a listen here with this.
We've come too far to lay down.
So this one's
and
right
just
down the
give-
center.
We've come too far to lay down.
And I've taken out pretty much all the low end there so that there's not buildup, and it's just doubling up some of those mids and high end frequencies to help it pop through and just bring out the things that I liked in my voice there. The other pieces are just doing the same thing, left and right.
We've come too far to lay down and just give up. It's not too
And I'm doing
late
something a little
to
different on
fix.
these because I've also, even though they're panned left and right, I'm adding a vocal doubler on each of them directly. So when I turn that off
We've come too far to lay
and then on,
down. We've come too far to
so it sounds like there are a couple
lay
vocals,
down.
but they're kind of phasey, which I liked in this context. And then I do the same thing on the right one so that it just sounds bigger. It sounds like there are more voices and they're all just kind of phasing in and out.
We've come too far to
And by
lay
panning those far left
down.
and far right, I'm also adding a lot of stereo width to my main vocal. So this first one down the middle is just thickening up that lead vocal. The left and right are just adding a bunch of stereo width to it and making it sound even wider in the chorus. So just again, for context, like if we're just hearing this go from the verse or the little pre-chorus here into the chorus, listen to how that lead vocal is just, down the middle, and then all of a sudden it spreads out once it gets to the chorus.
I need you right here. I need you right here. We've come too far to lay down.
Just like with my instrumentation, I'm spreading that out even further in the chorus. I'm doing the same thing with the vocal to create that contrast between center and stereo. The other vocal that I've added in here is not just for the doubling, but it's kind of this affected vocal to add a different texture in. So let's hear that. And this one's pretty wild sounding. What I'm doing with that is first I transposed it up 12 just on the region editor here. So without that. So I transposed it up 12. I then moved the formant down. So without that, it's going to sound like this. And just to clarify, this was just like a normal sounding vocal to begin with. So
We've come too far to lay down and just give up.
So
It's
that's
not
what that
too
originally
late
sounded like.
to
It was just
fix.
another double. And then by adding my transpose, by adding this formant change so that it's given that weird like roll, 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 roll. But it's like that, but way higher. And then same sort of vocal chain that we were using before, but I also added this heavy distortion from Decapitator.
We've come too far to lay down and just give up. It's not too late to fix what
So it's just super distorted. And then the last thing to really top it off is I put this micro phaser on it at a 16th triplet. And these settings, I just kind of played around with the knobs till I got it sounding right. But this is doing... And you can see that I actually have this track set as stereo instead of mono, like my lead vocal, so that my micro phaser can really be bouncing that left and right just within this vocal track, not relying on any sends, even though I still am using those sends here. And those are, so individually, those are everything that go into the chorus vocals. And again, when we hear them all together,
We've come too far to lay down and just give up. It's not too late to fix what
the last thing that we're
we
doing is kind of gluing them all together on this vocal bus. So I have my main vocal stack here, and I really wanted this to sound a little bit grimy in the song. So in context,
We've come too far
But then I go ahead and on the bus, I think I was just kind of, let's see, what was I? Okay, I did have another one of those dynamic EQ bands here in that area that tends to get muddied up with layering my vocals. That just tends to get muddied up with me. So I have another one that's catching anything.
We've come too far to lay
So that's just bouncing down when all those vocals together start to muddy up in that frequency range. I have another EQ band here that's just taking out any low end. Honestly, I could have, I should have just done that here. I don't know. I must have just already had that on the vocal chain, but I could have just done that in the one plugin. I'm adding another distortion to the entire bus to kind of glue them together.
We've come too far to lay down and just give up. It's not too late to fix what we
So
try.
it's maybe a little hard to hear on its own, but it's just gritting, adding some grit to all of them together. So I'll move the wet dry knob so you can hear it.
We've come too far to lay down and just give up. It's not too late to fix what we try. We've come too far to lay
Yeah, there we go. So I kind of wanted that distortion-y feeling. And then I added compressors after that to even kind of squash that distortion into it more. So not necessarily to control dynamics as much. That is also an effect of this, but I wanted to both glue them together so it sounded a little more cohesive with those doubles, but also make it sound even more distorted by adding the compression.
We've come too far to lay down and just give up. It's not too late to fix what we try.
And then just another EQ at the end there to catch anything that happened by me mangling it with more distortion and compression. So those are all the things that have gone into the vocals. Let's hear it again in context. If you have any questions on this stuff, or if you find it helpful, drop a comment. Let me know. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like to see. And thanks for joining the video. I'll go ahead and just let this play and turn some things on and off so you can compare it.